The inaugural Edwin Farnham Butler III, noted little bitch award, um, a recipient, aka Win Butler, has been accused of sexual misconduct by at least 4 individuals who have accused him of unwanted sexual advances, coercion, and other manipulative behavior. So, Pitchfork is reporting this first. The alleged misconduct took place between 2015 and 2020, when the victims, 3 women and 1 person who is gender fluid and uses they/them pronouns, range in age between 18 and 23, when Butler was between 36 and 39. Where have I seen this before? Pitchfork spoke to friends and family members of the alleged victims who recalled being told about the incidents and viewed screenshots of text messages and Instagram conversations between them and Butler, pulling the handbrake. In a written statement to Pitchfork, Butler acknowledged having relationships with the 4 individuals, but said they were all consensual, saying, quote, "I have never touched a woman against her will, and any implication that I have is simply false. I vehemently deny any allegation that I forced myself on a woman or demanded sexual favors. That simply unequivocally never happened." But apparently, so like that's one, the kind of like the both sides of the stories are out there. Going into some of the details, the victims didn't know anything about each other originally until one of the individuals, who used the pseudonym Stella, made an Instagram post identifying Butler as a, quote, "sexual predator who would constantly try to coerce me into sexual encounters and sending nude photos of myself and sending unsolicited nude pictures of himself after I repeatedly told him I wasn't interested." Upon seeing Stella's post, the other alleged victims who spoke to Pitchfork began sharing their own experiences on social media and Reddit, noting gaps in age, power dynamics, and context in which they occurred. And Butler responded to each allegation individually, kind of saying, "The majority of these relationships were short-lived, and my wife was aware. Our marriage has, in the past, been more unconventional than some." Butler said, "I have been, quote, I have been connected with people in person at shows and through social media and have shared messages of which I am not proud. Most importantly, every single one of those interactions have been mutual and always been consenting adults. It is deeply revisionist and frankly wrong for anyone to suggest otherwise. As I look to the future, I'm continuing to learn from my mistakes and working hard to become a better person, someone my son can be proud of." How come every single time they throw a family member
Always
as a human
Always.
shield? Like,
throw it in here, just soak it up, bud.
is there like there must be a playbook. There has to be like a playbook. I'm sorry for all the pain I caused. I'm sorry I wasn't aware and tuned to the effect I have on people. I fucked up. While it's not an excuse, I will continue to look forward and heal what can be healed and learn from past experiences. I can do better and I will do better. And then, when Butler's wife also released a statement. So
that one is rough.
I don't even want to go into that because I kind of summed up the whole kind of like family angle, and I've as a story on the Audioface podcast, we don't necessarily love the whole like angle of using your family as a human shield for your own mistakes. So, what, Sean, you have the floor.
Not good. It's not good. The big thing though of this is the aftermath. Like a whole swoon of things happened after the allegations came out and whatnot of like radio stations were pulling arcade music's fire. Arcade, what in the fuck? Arcade Fire's music. That's a new one. And then like they're having issues with people on tour. It has a big effect on it, and it'll be interesting to see how the band deals with this in the future. Also, is like they already had issues with like his brother leaving the band too,
Yeah.
right? But
It's
a couple
unclear.
months before, unclear if like this was going on before all of that. He found like we have no idea. but like
Yeah.
they've already had a lot of strenuous times with Arcade Fire already, and now this is like this year was a lot for them.
Yeah. So a lot of that tumult was a lot of radio stations in Canada saying that they were going to, pause their playing of Arcade Fire until they figure out what the hell is going on. And uh, more of it was Feist, who is at least at one point was going to be joining um was basically joining Arcade Fire on tour with, like opening up for them. Basically, open up the first show for them because the first show happened 3 days after the allegations came out in Pitchfork. And so she donated, it was in Dublin, Ireland, and she donated proceeds from her merchandise sales to Women's Aid Dublin, which I think was a fair thing to do. But even after that, she would later go on to withdraw off from the tour, saying that she, quote, can't continue and that, quote, I was never here to stand for or with Arcade Fire. I was here to stand on my own 2 feet on the stage, a place I've grown to feel where I belong, as I've earned my own. I play for my band, my crew, their loved ones, and all their families, and the people who play their hard-earned money to share space and collective synergy that is a show. The ebb and flow of my successes, failures of other decisions affect our livelihoods, and I recognize how lucky I am to be able to travel the world singing songs about my life, my thoughts, experiences, and to have that to my career. I never take that for granted. My experiences include the same experiences as the many people I have spoken to since the news broke on Saturday, and the many strangers whom I may only be able to reach with this letter or not at all. We all have a story ranging within the spectrum, ranging from baseline toxic masculinity to pervasive misogyny to actually being physically, psychologically, emotionally, or sexually assaulted. The situation touches each of our lives and speaks to us in a language unique to each of our processing. There isn't a singular path to heal when you've endured any version of the above, nor a singular path to rehabilitate the perpetrators. It can be a lonely road to make sense of ill treatment. I can't solve that by quitting, and I can't solve that by staying, but I can't continue. Arcade Fire apologized by basically saying, we're very sorry to see Leslie go, but we completely understand and respect her decision, which I think is like a classy thing for Arcade Fire to do. But even going back to the statement, I think that's a very powerful statement from Feist. I think it's really level-headed, really kind of shows everything that's laid out on the table from what has to be dealt with, the backing band, the fans, just the people who have resonated with these experiences, with the women who have resonated with these experiences at a time when, there were a lot of these allegations coming out in the music industry, in the indie music industry, indie music world, especially during the Me Too allegations, back in 2017, 2018, etc., even up to 2019. And there was kind of like a moment in time where it kind of felt like these things just kind of like weren't going to be taken seriously by a lot of different outlets, or they're just going to be brushed aside because you had who was it on Kanye's album, Marilyn Manson. All that seemed to come and go. You had the stuff with Tory Lanez. It's physical assault when we're talking about the alleged foot shooting kind of deal, right? So all this stuff is kind of happening in the media, and it seems to be kind of just brushed away scot-free. But when you have this sort of like connection, this mutual understanding of what's going on and like an action surrounding it, it's good to see that people are starting to kind of learn how to better respond to all of these things. As for how people are reacting to it, and maybe probably why one reason Feist was sort of uncomfortable with it, after that first gig when Feist opened, before Feist decided to pull out from it, there was rapturous applause, according to one person on Twitter who kind of just noted that, like, it didn't seem like anyone made any sort of like sense or presence. There wasn't like a lot of booing or whatever. There was like, the arena was filled to capacity when they played at the Dublin 3 arena. And when Butler kept his stage banter to a minimum, which was probably smart, and he said he thanked everyone from the bottom of his heart for coming out. So kind of like very not acknowledging the situation, at least from then. But probably something about that didn't feel necessarily great. I mean, like there's something between the boundary of all of the shows should be canceled because again, when Butler is just but one member of the band of Arcade Fire, they had nothing to do with this, and they are musicians that play a major role in this. They shouldn't be punished by it. There's something in between the spectrum of all Arcade Fire shows should be canceled and we should stop playing Arcade Fire music forever, and when Butler should not get away with this, socially or publicly scot free, should these allegations prove out to be true, as he seemed to kind of like acknowledge that a lot of these are, and that he, like really tries to look within himself to try to stop himself from doing these kind of things. Because this is something that a lot of men in power just feel a lot of free ability to do.
Yeah. You just gotta keep people accountable. That's the biggest thing. Just hold them
Yes.
accountable for their actions. Hold them accountable for that. I mean, that's what we do on this damn podcast. We practice what we preach to an nth degree. And it seems like, I mean, I haven't heard too much thing, but he's kind of just off the radar and stuff. But when he's admitted to it, and he's like owning up to his mistakes in a way, but still like not the bet. It's 3.6 Rankin. Not horrible, like not great, not horrifying the way his response is. Because most of the responses it's complete denial, complete just utter denial, throw it in your face, the Trump way of, just throw it in your face and go fuck yourself basically. But when is the first one in a long time, I guess, of actually owning up to his mistakes and stuff, and it'll be really telling of how it is in the next couple months, the next year, next couple years and stuff of Arcade Fire and himself, of what happens with the band, what happens with him and the victims and stuff as well, to see what course of action they take to it. So we'll see what happens. Not great. And
Yeah.
it's always just like music industry sucks.